Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. Hey, Jen.
Hey, Summer. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. So glad to be here. Always happy to be here on a Thursday with you, my friends.
Me too.
Woo! So here we are today, and we are going to talk about something called money and mental health. Woo, woo, woo. We have a question that was submitted to us. That's a really important question. But I think it's an important subject. May is Mental Health Awareness Day or Awareness Month. So it is something close to my heart. Jen, you want to say a few things?
Yeah, I think one of the things that this is so important to talk about, or why it's so important to talk about, is because in the past, and we just got off on Instagram Live, but in the past, it's been something that people have not felt comfortable talking about. People were not encouraged to speak up about this. And so it's really nice to see that there's more awareness being brought to light about this whole topic. And we're talking about how it also affects our money. And there is a direct correlation between the two. And so when many of us have experienced it in some form or fashion, especially within the last year because of lockdown, quarantine, the pandemic, people losing jobs, businesses going out of business. We have all experienced it at some form or fashion and some kind of level. And so we're here to talk about how can we do better? What can we do to cope? What are some resources? Summer's going to provide some of that. She's also going to talk about some of the, some stats, which is always so fascinating because we're nerdy like that. And we just love stats. But, it's also understanding how to, how do I do better? What do I do to cope with this? And, because it's not a good place to feel stress and anxiety. And, I've been on many calls with people, personal friends, as well as clients, where I can see whether it's debt, loss of job, spouse loses job, kids get in a car accident and we need a new car. There's no money. I mean, I've seen it all, and it's so heavy. And so there are things that we can do to prepare, but, some things happen and they're out of our control. But when you're at that place, what is it that we can do? So we're here to talk about that. And Summer, do you want to read the question or?
Yeah, I'm going to read the question. So let's read the question. But before we get into the question, I do want to say that, again, it's May is Mental Health Month, Awareness Month. And although it's a month that we recognize mental health issues, every day is a day to recognize these issues. So let me get on to reading the question. It says, I feel like my money issues are taking a huge hit on my mental wellness. What are some tips that you can give to help reduce my anxiety about money and strategy that can help with getting me back on track financially? One of the things that I do want to mention right out the gate is that mental health illness and mental disease, the more we educate about this, the more we open up discussion about this, the less it becomes something that we have to hide, the less it becomes where we have a stigma on it. We want to open up these conversations because they are so critical. If we don't have our mental health or we don't have our physical health, we basically don't have a lot. So they are the foundation to helping us function every day, our mental and physical wellness. So why we hide this or why we shame this or why we don't want to talk about this is beyond me. Really, it really is. So I have a hard time wrapping my head around why we don't talk about this because it is so critical. And let me tell you, folks, many people have this happening in their family or with their friends.
Yeah. I totally agree.
So let me get into some of the stats really quickly. But before I get into some of the stats, I do want to tell you that something Jen mentioned early on in our other show, which I thought was really critical to mention, is there is a wide range of mental health issues, mental health symptoms that we experience. So know that when we talk about this today, we're talking about a wide range of different things that people might experience and how we can help them and tips to help them. So I know that there's severe mental health, moderate, and, maybe the beginning stages of mental health issues. So know that we're trying to touch on a lot here. So, but what I do want you to know is please try and recognize the symptoms that come up. Number one. Number two, if you have or are feeling something where you need some help, where you need some support, there is also always the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And that is not just for suicide, but that is if you're having severe anxiety, if you're having depression, and if you need some support, call that helpline and give a talk to somebody or chat with somebody, about how you're feeling. That's 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-TALK. That is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. So do you know that people with mental health problems are 3.5 more times as likely to be in problem debt? 46% of people in debt also have mental health problems. Mental health and money problems are often intricately linked. Research has shown that in England, as an example, alone, over 1.5 million people are experiencing both problems, debt and mental health issues. So there was a survey done by the Money and Mental Health Institute, and 86% of their respondents, of nearly 5,500 people who were surveyed, experienced mental health problems, said that their financial situation made their mental health problems worse. It exacerbated their issues. And of course it would. If we're having mental health issues and we're having financial issues, yeah, our problems are going to be compounded, right? So it's the way we spend, the way we save, the way we maybe overspend, maybe impulsively spend. But I want you to touch on something that you mentioned earlier, Jen, in our last show, and that was mood. If you want to touch on that, I would love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's important that when you're going through certain things in life, it's so critical for us to pay attention to, what are we feeling? What is my mood? Like, what's happening when I'm dealing with my money, when it comes to whether it's spending, whether it's, what are the patterns that you might see? Why are you spending money? Is it when you're stressed? Is it when, financial issues arise? Is it when you get into a fight with a family member, a kid, one of your kids, your spouse, or something like that? What is that activity that's taking place that's triggering you to spiral down in a negative way in regards to your money and how you're handling it? Because when we don't pay attention to that, we're not mindful and aware of what's going on. And then we can't see the patterns that are happening. And when you don't see that, then you don't know what to improve. So pay attention about, when you spend your money, how you save your money, and why. It really stop and slow down. And even that in itself is a huge tip, because we are going. I see people all the time running around like crazy, even though things are virtual. I think, I'm going to pause and say something here.
Sure.
You find that people are kind of, even though we don't drive as much, I feel like virtual has almost had this negative impact where not only are we just staying in one place, but because now there's this feeling like, oh, because I don't have to drive anywhere, I can just pack every hour in the schedule even more. And it's like, I know you and I have even had that feeling when, when we're trying to coordinate our schedules. It's like, well, I have this. It's like, okay, well, I have this 30-minute window. And it's like, all of a sudden, just because we don't have to drive anywhere physically, it's like, oh, the schedule has to get so impacted. And that's why I even joked around, like, I don't even want to say there's a free moment, because the minute I say that, it just fills up like this.
Oh.
And I'm like, there went my catch-up day.
Jen, I have to agree with you 110%. Now that we're at home and we're doing all these things virtually, it seems like everybody wants to fill up like every single moment of the schedule. And I'm like, whoa. And so I actually take a couple of days, but they still get full. But the couple of days to do admin stuff, just to like take a breather, do admin stuff, and be able to take care of myself. Because with all that we have going on, you, me, everybody out there who's listening, all that you have going on, our schedules have shifted. They have changed dramatically. They have changed to virtual, teaching kids virtually, being that homeschool school mom and dad, and being at home with them constantly. And that is difficult. Oh, as much as you love your children, as much as we love our spouses, to be in the same house, to be working virtually with them every day, that has changed the way we function every day. Imagine that. That changed how we functioned on a daily basis. Our spouses are maybe in the same home working. Maybe they're, our schedules have changed significantly. Maybe you're that mom or dad teaching their kids and then having to work at the same time. I know we've had that discussion, Jen, about you like saying, hey, I got to go make lunch for my kid.
Yeah, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Big
Yeah, exactly. And yet we've had to learn how to do this. And a lot of times our time is being consumed virtually. So I think this was something exceptional that you mentioned, Jen, because it's important to also look at that, because that can be overwhelming and aches provoking. They were calling it many times these online fatigue, because we were overwhelmed by it.
Mm-hmm.
Because now everything, not only do we have fun on our little gizmos, right, in our electronics, but what happens is not only do we have fun, but now we have to work on them constantly.
I
So
know.
when do we get a break?
Right. Now I'm just like, hey, you want to meet in real life? Like, I'm all for it. So if you're ever in Southern California, like, I will drive to you, because it's like, no, I need to see like a real person, like,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, and it's exactly what you said. The virtual fatigue, Zoom fatigue. I mean, when something gets its own name, it's pretty dang serious.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It is serious. So getting back to, this issue of mental health and money and how that impacts us, there are some tips that maybe we should go over about how we can help support folks, dealing with additional stress because of these financial factors.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I'm going to let you go first, because I think that, I want to start from like kind of mild to more extreme. So,
okay, perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to add a little bit more to the, thinking about the thought patterns around money. That's a great place to start, because it helps you start to look at like, well, what is it that I need to work on? So we're talking about that range, like Summer mentioned in the beginning. Some other things that you want to think about are what aspects of dealing with money make your mental health worse. Is it attending appointments? Is it opening envelopes? And I'm talking about like statements. I have had clients, this is years ago, who, before we had email statements and all that, they used to send out paper. Remember that paper?
Yes.
And people would not open their statements, because they had this fear of, I don't want to see the debt, or I don't want to see my investments, or it's so crazy. There's a fear behind even opening up envelopes.
Man.
It's crazy. And then the last thing I will say too is keep a diary of your spending and your mood. I think this one's so important. It doesn't have to be this, elaborate process. It could even be a few sentences like, you know what, I feel great today, or you know what, I feel good, I just paid the utility bill. Something small. Like, I think it's so important for us to understand, like, what are those things, because when you record how you're feeling before and afterwards about something, you're recording these milestones, because it's so easy for us to get so caught up in the busyness of life that we forget how far we've come. And then we get caught up in the present moment, and we think we're losers, we're not going anywhere. I mean, we've all had that negative self-talk. But when you can go back to a journal or anywhere that you've documented the things that you've done and the things that you did right, you realize, like, you know what, I'm in a better place. Yeah. It's so hard for us to remember those little baby steps and milestones that we've taken. But when you record this in a journal, when you just keep a journal, diary, whatever you want to call it, it could help you work out any triggers or patterns.
Oh my God, I love that. And yes, I just want to reiterate this. Recording your milestones is so important, but recording your mood and spending patterns is also really critical. It's amazing how our mood can really impact our spending habits when we spend money, how much we spend money, the impulsivity that goes along with spending money. So our mood really triggers how we manage and spend our money. So a couple of the other ideas that I want to throw out there in regards to tips, again, going from, less extreme to more extreme, is live within your means.
Yes.
If you don't know what that means live within your means. If you're getting a paycheck, break that down into bills, into expenditures, into like savings, into insurance, into Jen can speak more to that later. She is your financial coach and expert, so she can help you with those things. But yes, make sure this is all aligned for you, because if you don't have this, if you don't have something that you can look at, I have a binder that I look at all the time. And I look at that binder and go, okay, here's what we're doing this month. This is what our budget looks like. This is how much we have to spend. This is what's going to our escrow account. This is what's going to our taxes. This is what's going. It is so important for me to know that so that I don't get into a situation, a negative situation. Make your savings automatic. So if you get a check, maybe send part of that directly into savings every month, which is really important. Use cash instead of like your credit cards, because there's more of an accountability when you use your cash, when you actually have cash on you, because many times we look in our wallets and go, I only have 20 bucks here. I have 40 bucks here. I don't want to use all that right now. That's me anyway. Like, I have my little wallet and I put all my money in there, and Jen would be like, oh, Summer, oh my gosh, you put your dollar bills and everything in there. Yes, I do. And but that bill clump, I don't want to spend it. Like, I just don't.
I'm like you. I want to be able to open that thing and see there's paper. And I'm going to tell you, I was so bad with keeping cash.
Yeah.
And, so bad, not because I would spend it. It was just like, I would just never have it. I would always, everything was hard. But I have to say, here in California, especially when you go to LA, LA area, and there's a lot of downtown LA or certain places where you have to pay for parking.
Oh, yes.
A lot of it is not like you can use your card. So I had to finally learn, like, just carry cash. And it's a good rule of thumb anyways to have cash, because there's every once in a while you run into something where like they don't accept card, which is so dumb, but whatever. Yeah. I had to learn. And now, but when I do have it, it's like this mental game I have with myself. Like, how long can I keep that dollar bill or that 20 bill or whatever? But I do keep 100 in there. Yeah. But that's more from a money mindset perspective. But I have gotten better.
And that is so important, because we really do want to track our money, but having cash, it just makes you more mindful about your money. And number two, I want to kind of piggyback on what you said about always having cash. It is so important to always have some cash on you. Have you ever driven through like those, what are they? Where you have to pay a fee to go through like
a toll road?
Toll booth. Thank you. A toll booth. And it's like, you don't have cash and you're like, oh my gosh. And now they're going to record me and send me a ticket because I don't have cash. And it's like, if you don't have like the little thing that you put up on your, Easy Pass or whatever.
Yes.
And I have an Easy Pass, which is fine. But sometimes if they don't take Easy Pass to go through that toll booth, you don't have cash. You're like, now what?
Oh, I have a tip for that, because I've done it a couple times.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I have gotten I go, okay, screw it. I mean, because you can't back up.
No.
You have to go through it, right?
Yeah.
I just went through it. And so when I'm waiting for that letter to come, I will always write. And this has worked. Like, whatever the fine was, I will write, and I will say, you know what? My intention was not to go here. There was a couple times, and I wasn't lying. I would say, I mistakenly went down this way. I didn't have the thing, or I didn't have, cash on me, whatever the case may be. And I said, so I would explain the situation. And then there's times when it got reduced to $6.
Oh,
or they'll give me a warning, but I always write to dispute it. And I don't end up paying like the thing now. And then I'm, of course, more careful not to go down that road again, not being prepared.
Exactly.
Literally and figuratively.
Exactly. And here's the other thing with that. If you don't pay, I know we're getting a little off topic here, folks, but here's the thing.
Money tips.
They're money tips. Here's the thing. If you don't pay that starts accruing interest. There were many news segments on this, because some people were getting like thousands of dollars of accrued interest on like a $6 fee.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, oh my gosh. And so whenever something like that happens to me, I get online, I figure out who I need to contact, I get that bill, and I either pay that bill right away or I write somebody, as you said, Jen, because that is super important. So I'm going to go back to this. So living within your means, make your savings automatic, use cash. Let's see. Create a spending and savings plan and a budget, which is really important. Commit to learning how to manage your money. Learning. We were not born knowing how to manage money. We just weren't. And many times, maybe our parents didn't even know how to manage money. I've seen examples of this. So it's like, we need to be open to learning about our money and our money patterns, how we're spending, how we're saving, and having a budget and what that means. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want a budget. You know, that feels so uncomfortable. And I can tell you I was one of those people. I was like, I felt restricted and confined. And I'm like, no, I'm a free bird. I just want to go, right? And I was like,
Spirit, I don't need a plan.
I just want to spend money, right? And it's like, oh yeah, that's not a good idea. That'll get you into a lot of trouble. And I've been there too. So it's like, and I had to make sure that I paid off my debt, and I had to make sure that I paid off A, B, and C, because I just didn't know. So be open to learning new techniques and methods about your money. Being open to that will really help you. I mean, trust me, it was like a burden was lifted off me when I was like, okay, finally I'm going to get real with myself, and I'm going to start learning about my own money, just like you did, Jen.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I have to say, I'm so proud of you, but there is that phrase actually is, I'm not joking. It's the phrase I hear all the time. People say, it's either I got to get these two, I got to get real, or I need to get my ish together. Those are the two phrases people come and say to me. It's
seriously, you got to get real with yourself.
Yeah, because you get to a point where you are so tired of running and not being organized, and it's all over the place. You're paying late fees, $35 a pop. It's just like, that's what's compounding the interest, not only the interest, but the anxiety and the stress. People, you get to a point where you're just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's not a way to live. It's not freeing. And it was so interesting. Summer said, you know, I want to be free. And when we talk about a spending plan, it actually is the inverse, where you are creating freedom because you are preventing yourself from experiencing that stress and anxiety of not having money left over to pay for your bills, not feeling that guilt about, oh, I bought this, or I shouldn't have bought this. Should I I hear it all. Like, should I return this? I want to keep it, but no, I already bought it, but you know, should I return it? Or I had to return everything because I didn't have the money. And I'm just like, so you didn't know that you had the money to buy it in the first place. And then you having to wait. And not only that, you have to waste time going back to the store to return it.
Yes.
It's just like you're wasting time and money. So getting organized is so, so critical and key, because it keeps you on check. And I'm telling you, and I know Summer feels this way too, like when you are on top of it, and you feel there is this freedom, and it feels so good that you know where all the money's going, you know where every dollar is. It feels very powerful and very liberating, because you're like, I know what's happening. I mean, how even in a relationship, does it ever feel good when you feel like you're in the dark and you know, like, what the heck is going on in this relationship? It is no different than when you're having a relationship with your money. If you don't know what's going on with anything, it never feels good. So it's no different than understanding what is taking place.
I'm typing here really quickly.
Yeah.
It gives you were so right on about how that is so freeing and gives you a sense of freedom. Oh my gosh. Because seriously, when I paid off all my debt outside of my school loans, I have to say, I was like, woo, this feels so good. And I told myself, I never want to feel that way again. Never, because it's oppressive. It feels really,
that's the perfect word.
Woo,
oppressive.
Overwhelming. It is oppressive. And I'm telling you, when you see those charges come in, those fees of, 12, 11, 22, it doesn't matter what percentage they are, that they're stacking up and rolling up on your credit cards. You're like, wow, am I even getting anywhere with this? So really, it is so imperative to create that freedom in your life by taking some of these simple steps. Now, I do want to move on, because there are even more serious situations here in regards to mental health and money. And some of these things are, people with moderate to severe mental health issues have a hard time holding down a job, have a hard time working. And so that will really impact your financial situation. And so many times you'll have to go and find folks that actually have an understanding of what it means to have mental health issues and needing a job, and what that would look like. Because that might mean that maybe one day you'll have a really hard time getting up and getting out of bed. Maybe one day you'll have, severe anxiety. And there are places out there. There certainly are places out there that can help support this. And so in regards to you finding a job that is suitable for you. And one of those places is you can always call the mental health or suicide prevention hotline, just because what happens is they're not just, or Lifeline, they're called Lifeline now because they have resources. They have resources available for you. So give them a call. Then there's also, if you have an issue with housing, so there are housing options for people with mental health issues. And so if you're experiencing financial hardship along with your mental illness, and it's possible to find affordable housing, what you might want to do is give the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development a call and see if they have some resources for you, which is really important. You can also call potentially the United Way and find out if they have resources for you about housing, about jobs, about different things. And there are these entities, these organizations that absolutely want to be of service. Now, here's another one, a biggie regarding your mental health and money. Do you know that mental illness is the third most common Social Security disability category? The third most common. Mental health issues can also exist along with other primary disabilities, and 58.8% of adults receiving supplemental security income, SSI, and 34.7% of Social Security disability insurance in 2016 had psychiatric conditions, either as a primary disability or along with one. So you can also apply for Social Security disability. If you have mental health, you can also apply there. So you can call your Social Security Administration office, and get on the website or call them and find out if you can apply.
You know, I wanted to
yes,
add, the fact that you're talking about Social Security. So, typically it's, 65, 67, depending on how long you want to wait for those benefits.
Yeah.
But it makes me think, like, how sad how many of these people probably went throughout their entire life not being able to talk about it or get help. And now they're at this age where, who knows if it could have been prevented, or they could have been in a better place. But it just knowing that it's at that stage of their life, I'm wondering how many of these people have had to suffer for most of their life not getting the resources. And so, I wanted to add to that, one of the tips that we have talked about earlier today about this particular subject was talking to somebody. Yes. And not feeling this guilt or shame, and feeling that, oh, it's okay for me to reach out. It's okay for me to talk about it. And we had some guests or people that were engaging in when we were on Instagram, and they actually had firsthand experience with family members who have experienced mental health issues and still do. And one person was talking about how they were made fun of. And so it's such an important conversation that we have to bring awareness, but not only that, to understand how are we treating each other? How are we supporting those people, not just the person who has the mental health challenge, but the family members that have to take care of this and go through it with that family member who is suffering from mental illness?
Such really good points, because we need to be more empathic and understanding. Do you know, if we did not have our mental health and stability, how challenging that would be, life would be? It is exhausting. It is challenging. It is every single day. And I know I'm preaching here, but forgive me, but I have to say that mental health awareness, being empathic and open, is so critical to being more kind and breaking down that stigma of mental health issues. And so we need to go further, even though this is, as I said, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We need to be thinking about this and talking about this every day, because we need to break down that stigma. Do you know, Jen, that as the executive director of the Warrior Research Program, I went and took a trip from California from Washington, D.C. to California. And when I made that trip, we stopped to visit veterans at the different places, right?
Wow.
The VAs, the all these different entities. And so what ended up happening was we were getting their stories. And you know what they said? Even those folks that served in Vietnam, they said, we haven't talked to anybody about how we are feeling. I mean,
I got chills.
Right? We still don't talk. And the reason we come to these certain groups and organizations like the VFW is because we can talk to other veterans about our issues, but we don't feel like we can talk to other people. And it's like, oh my gosh, so you're suffering in silence. But I'm so happy though that they have those veteran to veteran peer programs, or even going to places like the VFWs where they can actually talk. But my point being is, we have veterans from Vietnam who still feel like they haven't been able to talk about this with anybody. And that is significant. And why? Because there's still a stigma.
Yeah.
And I say to this, let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep the dialogue going. Let's break down the stigma. All right. So I'm going to stop there, but in regards to that little part of my chat, but because I do think it's important, and I do think stats are important, but there are people behind the stats. And here's one thing I always hear all the time is this is really, like there's a silence with mental health. And it's not like where if we break an arm, we can see the broken limb, or if we lose a leg or something like that. Right. So, but here's the thing. If we open these discussions, if we talk more about this, we will begin to identify more of the symptoms. So so these symptoms, once we identify it, we know that this isn't silent. We're just missing the red flags. We're missing the symptoms. So when we open these discussions and talk about this, it becomes more real. And it's like, oh, wow, now I can ask that person, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling okay? What's going on with you? How can I help you?
I love that simple question. How can I help you?
Yeah.
I think it's so important for us to reach out to one another and ask that question, because nobody wants to go like, hey, it's hard for people to ask for help sometimes.
Yeah.
It is, there's some pride involved. There's some like, I don't want to burden other people, or this is my thing that I have to deal with. So I think as a responsibility for us being supportive of those who are suffering through this, it's so important for us to reach out and be proactive and say like, can I help you? Is there anything I can do? So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. So folks, today was all about mental health and money. And we wanted to provide some tips, although, we did recognize that there is a wide range of, who's impacted by mental health, and how, if they're having moderate to major mental health symptoms, what that looks like and how that would impact money and the resources available. But if there's one simple thing we can do is become more aware of our money and where it's going, and having a budget, and simply being able to even journal about that. And to look back and say, wow, I've come a long way in regards to when I first started this journal about my money, and that awareness. So
yes,
with that said, let's go to our nugget.
Yes. All right. So my nugget of the day is simply to, alongside doing the journal to understand your mood and patterns and things like that, is to actually look after your well-being. And that could be as simple as taking even 10 minutes, 5 minutes, even, I know we're all saying we're so busy, and we are, but it's so critical for you to take care of your well-being. And if you can just either stop and pause, one of my favorite things to do is actually get out of the house, go to the park, walk around, be next to the lake and trees and birds and geese and things like that, and just be in nature and just reconnect with the earth. And it's this feeling of like, I can just feel it physiologically, like it just recenters me, because I know when I come back, I got to jump back on the computer, back on a Zoom, back on a StreamYard, back on something, back on your device. But it's like, if you can just even give yourself that small moment of time, that can just ease that anxiety and just change and shift how you're feeling. And so take some time to look after your well-being. Summer, your turn.
Oh my gosh. I like that so much that I'm going to piggyback on that. It is critical to look after your well-being, but it is also very critical to get out of the house. I know for some, it might be really difficult. You may not feel like it. You may have anxiety or be depressing. And we've been cooped up in the house, but try and get out of the house and take those steps, take that walk. Why? Because that creates dopamine and serotonin in your body. And many times, even in research, it shows that that can really help support your mood in a positive way. So get out, as Jen said, even if it's bird watching, even if it's feeling that sun on your face, even if it's taking those few steps, get out of the house. Get out of the house. All right, my friends. That is my nugget for the day. And I want to thank you for joining us for the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. And Jen, I want to thank you, as always, for being my most exceptional co-host.
Oh, thank you. And everyone, give it up for my amazing, spectacular co-host, Summer. And so thank you so much for being here and for being open to listening to how can we support those who are suffering from mental health, and how can you also deal with it if this is something that you are suffering from.
Yes, thank you so much. Take care, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you for watching the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. Dr. Summer Watson is the owner of the production and coaching company Core Women, LLC, is a doctor of psychology, has a depth of experience working in both for-profit and nonprofit in human services and mental health, is a professional coach, seminar host, documentary film producer, and an author. Jen Fontanilla is a former financial advisor and now a certified money coach, speaker, and has published 6 books. She has worked with organizations such as the Walt Disney Company, Warner Brothers, Target, Goodwill, and the U.S. Air Force. She loves working with women and helps them master their money and mindset to empower them to build the ultimate life without worrying about money. Join Summer and Jen every week as they go live on the Life, Love, and Money Show on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn.